Hi guys, and welcome to another Divi Theme video. This is Jamie from System22 and webdesignandtechtips.com. Well, we've got three little simple hover effects for you today. These are great little eye-catching features. These will usually work best on a desktop site. We've got three images at the top here when I hover over. This one's going to fade in. That's a little call to action right there. This next one, if I hover over it, it's going to drop down. And again, I'll just use a call to action. This will work with any module you like though. And this third one here is going to slide in from the left. Really easy to do. I've got to write one tiny little line of code for this today, but it's really easy. And as usual, I'll put any code I write down below. So let's get started. I'm going to enable the Visual Builder so we can build on the front end. Okay, once enabled, let's go down to where we want to work. I'm going to create a new row and we'll start from scratch. So I'm going to click on the existing row, hit the little green button down here. I'm going to put 3 columns in as we've got 3 little effects here. Okay, I'm going to use a call to action module. Divi comes with all these light grey modules as standard, plenty enough to build just about any site, and this will work with any module you choose. I'm simply going to use a call to action on mine. Let's roll up so we can see what's going on. I'm going to leave it on the generic. Obviously you can style yours how you like. You won't have a button show up until you put an actual link in there. So I'm going to roll down a little bit for the link. I'm going to put a placeholder hashtag in there. As soon as I put that in there, the button will show up. And that's all I'm going to do to this module. Okay, let's just save that a minute. I'm simply going to clone this and bring it into our other columns as well. To do that, click on the module. Little dark tab for the module, hit the 2 little squares there, it'll clone it. I'm going to do that twice, 2 clicks. Drag one of them across, doesn't matter which one, they're absolutely identical. So we'll have actually 3, 1 in each column. There we go. And the way these things are going to work today, the actual image that you're going to see resides in the column that this module is sitting in. So let's go into our row and add some images. Again, I'm going to click anywhere within the row here, go into the green tab of the row, and here's our 3 columns, 1, 2, 3. I'm going to go into the first one. I'm going to go down the background and we'll choose an image. You've got color, gradient, image, video, background pattern or background mask, and you can combine colors and gradients and images together if you need to. I'm going to keep mine simple today. Simply going to use an image. Let's select the image you want. Now you can't see it because it's actually behind our little module here. But what I'm going to do now, while we're in our row, or actually while we're in this column, I'm going to give it a fixed height. To do that, let's go over to our advanced. I'm going to go down custom CSS. And this is the only line of code we're going to write today. And it's so simple. It's height, H-E-I-G-H-T, colon, and then the height that you want. I'm going to say 400 pixels. And when I do that, you can see a bit of it spilling out of the bottom because it's a bit taller now than our actual module there. Let's put a semicolon on there. So let's copy this because we're going to use it in our other columns as well. Now while we're here, in the advanced, I'm going to close up the custom CSS and go down to visibility. Not so much for this particular one because we're going to have it fade in, but for the others I'm going to have one drop down and one slide in, so we'll be pushing them out of the column. I don't want to see them when we push them up or left or right from the column. So visibility on the advanced tab, I'm going to go down to horizontal overflow and change that to hidden, and I'm going to do the same with the vertical. That way when we push things outside of the column, it'll disappear. Now you may find with Divi on the back end you might still see it, but on the front end you won't. Great. So let's do similar for our next 2 columns. I'm going to hit save. It'll take us back to the main row settings. We'll go into column 2. Let's choose a background picture. Pop that in there. Again, I'm going to go to the advanced and we'll pop in that little code that I copied just now, custom CSS, main element, Control V to paste, there it is, height 400. Again, we pop that in the bottom. We'll adjust that in a minute so everything works. And we'll close that up. We'll go down to our visibility. and we'll change those to hidden also. Now let's go to our final one, the third one, choose an image. And again, over to our advanced, custom CSS, paste in that little bit of code there. Close that one up, down to visibility, and change both of these to hidden. Fantastic, we're ready to rock and roll now. We can do what we want without it spilling out of these columns. So this first little hover effect here, we're going to have this actually fade in over our image. Initially, I just want to see the images with all of these. Now the first thing I really want to do is make sure this covers the whole of our image there. So I've just got to add a bit of padding to the bottom. So let's click on the module, we'll go inside. And I'm simply going to go over to design, spacing. I'm going to add a bit more padding to the bottom. You can put as much or as little as you want there as long as it covers the picture. Because we've got overflow hidden, it's only going to go and show you to our 400 pixels there. So actually this module is now about this tall. But that works absolutely fine. Now to create our first hover effect, still in design, I'm going to close this one up. And like I said before, initially I don't want to see this module at all, I just want to see the image. So let's roll down to filters, keep rolling down till we find opacity. Opacity is transparency or see-throughness if you like. Now this is common to most Divi modules. If you hover over the dark writing, you'll see some little icons appear. Go to the thing that you want to affect, opacity in our case here. If there's a little arrow there, yep, we can click on it and set a desktop state when your mouse is not on it, and a hover state when the mouse is on it. So for the desktop state, I don't want to see that module at all, so I'm going to drag this all the way to the left to 0. It's invisible, we're left with our nice little image there. When they hover over it, I want it to be fully visible. I'm going to drag that up to the right and it'll come back. Now the time it takes to do this with the Divi theme is 300 milliseconds, which is pretty quick. It'll actually work, but if you decide you want to slow it down for a bit of drama or grace, you can go over to your advanced, go down to transitions. There's the default 300. Let's up it to maybe half a second, 500. And again, just put in the 500, it'll put in the milliseconds. Transition speed curve I like to use for most of my hover effects is ease in out. Now these all subtly different, some will work better than others in certain situations, but I'm going to use that one today for my hover effect. Transition delay, I don't want any delay. What that's going to do is delay it when they put their mouse over it. I want it to happen straight away. So I'm happy with that first one. Great, well that's looking good. Let's move on to our second one. I'm not going to demo this, we'll get them all done, then we'll look at them all on the other end. So the second one here, let's go into it. I'm going to have it perhaps slide down from the top. So I'm going to click on it, we're going to go into that module. If I move this over to the left, what's going to happen here is I'm going to scoot this all the way up here with a bit of negative margin, but I've got to add a lot of padding on the bottom, so we've got actually a handle to trigger it with, because if you don't put padding on the bottom, there's nothing, when they hit it, the module won't trigger. So what I'm going to do is go over to my design, down to my spacing. First thing I'm going to do, I know this is about 400 high, so let's give it 400 pixels padding on the bottom. And the overflow is hidden, remember, so it shouldn't spill out. Great. Now I've got to adjust it with some margin to drag it out of the way at the top there. So I'm going to give it negative margin at the top, which will pull it up. If you give it positive margin, it'll push it down. So I'm going to give it, say, negative 400, I guess. Let's try that. I'm going to simply type in negative 400. And it's zoomed at the top there. And it doesn't look like we've got quite enough padding on the bottom, because that really needs to cover all that. I know we're going to change that color so you can't see it, but we want it to be able to trigger right from the bottom of the image. If I leave it like that, it won't trigger till they put their mouse up here. So let's give it maybe an extra 100 on the bottom. Like I say, it doesn't matter because the overflow is hidden there. Great. Well, of course, I don't want to see this greeny blue square. I want to see a nice image. So what we're going to do, we'll go to our content. We'll go to the background right here. There's our background color, and we can do exactly the same as we did before. We can go up, hover over, hit the little arrow up here. Desktop, well, I don't want to see that color at all. So rather than get rid of it, I'm actually just going to drag the opacity down, because when you fade from various settings on a hover state, it's better to go from a color with no opacity to a color with opacity rather than from no color to a color, because it'll glitch out a little bit. So that's great. Now on the hover state, I want to bring that opacity back up, and all I did was go to the arrow there, looked like there was nothing there, click on the field, it'll come back, and we can pull our opacity back there. Great. Well, we still can't see this on hover state. We want to be able to see all our writing on the hover state. So let's go back to our spacing now and fix that. Back on the design tab, down to spacing. And again, for the hover state, I'm just going to go up to my margin here, hit the little arrow. When we hover over it, I'm going to change that -400 to a 0. And that slides back. And again, timing wise, let's go over to our advanced. Just change that transition to perhaps half a second, or whatever works for you. Ease in, out. Right, there's our second one done there. Let's go to our third one now. This one, I'm going to scoot all the way over to the right hand side and then have it come back in here. So again, let's click on it. We'll go into the module. I'll pull this here so we can see what's going on. And again, the first thing I want to do is just add a bit to the bottom there because it's not quite covering our image yet. So let's design, spacing, padding bottom. Again, I'm just going to throw 100 pixels at it. Fantastic. Now I need to scoot this all the way over to the right hand side here. So I'm going to use negative margin on the right to do this. And you can just type in negative, or you can go down so it's -1 and just right. Let's try, well, I guess we'll use 400 again. Why not? As you can see, it's thrown it over there, but what it's done, it's actually stretched our writing, and I don't want to see any writing there. So we have to offset that with a bit of padding on this left hand side here. So let's try 300. Not quite enough. May as well up it to 400. There we go, and it's completely invisible there. And of course, when we hover back over it, we want to adjust these. So again, I'm going to go to my margin, hit the little arrow on hover. I'm going to bring that back to 0, and we'll have to adjust the padding also. This padding, I'm going to knock 0 off because I need some padding on the left. So let's try that. Yeah, I think that's fairly central. You can always adjust it if it doesn't look central to you. You can increment up or just type in a new value. Something like that, that's not too bad. Great. So when we're hovering over, we've got this. When we're not, we've got that. But what I didn't mention was, remember when you go over and adjust your padding, you've got to go to the arrow on that. You can't adjust your padding while you're in the arrow on this. So go to the thing that you want to adjust. So that's right for the hover, but the left, we want to put that how it was, which is back to 400, I believe. Great, so there's our desktop state. When we hover, it wants to be 40. And again, I'm going to go over to my advanced. I'm going to go down to transitions. And I'm going to put 500 in there, or half a second. And ease in, ease out. Great. What if we've done everything correctly now? Oh, I see a problem. We don't want to see that at all. So again, I'm going to go into this. Incidentally, this reminds me, if you move modules around, you may have trouble getting into them on the front end. If that's the case, go down to your little purple button. Right on the bottom, we've got a little icon here. That's wireframe mode or back end mode. You can go in there. It'll take you to back end, make it easier to get into a module. If you have a problem with the positioning, once you're in there, you can go back to your desktop mode. Okay, so all I need to do with that is take the background again. So on content, go down to background, and again, we'll hit the hover. Desktop, don't want to see any background. Click on the field, opacity down. When we hover back over it, click on the field. I want to bring that opacity back up there. And of course, you don't have to have it full view. You can have it a little bit transparent so you can see a bit of the image behind, just as long as you can read your text. For me though, I'm actually going to have mine like that. If we've done everything correctly now, we should be good to go. I'm going to go down, I'm going to save my draft. And let's exit the Visual Builder. And let's go down. Here's our three little images. The first one should fade in. There it is. And of course they can click on the button there. And don't forget, this will work with any module you choose. Second one is going to slide down from the top. There it is. And the third one is going to slide in from the right hand side. There we go. And of course they're going to ease back out when we take our mouse off. So I hope you've enjoyed this today and found it useful. Don't forget, if you've got any questions, pop them down below in the comments. I'll do my best to answer any questions whenever I can. Once again, this has been Jamie from System22 and webdesignandtechtips.com. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.